Day one of me using the training EpiPen to show you guys how to use it until everyone on TikTok knows how to use an EpiPen because it's something we should all know. Ready? So here's what you're going to do. Blue to the sky. Orange to the thigh. And you're just going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Booyah.
That was a fantastic video, but 2 hidden details. She counted to 10, that's alright, but counting 3 seconds is enough. Number 2, just to make it safer, don't cover the tips, either it's blue or orange, with your thumb.
Tea for a child, answer is no. Do not give tea for a child, especially for a child who is less than the age of 12. Because tea contains a compound called tannin. Tannin can actually reduce the absorption of iron from the gut. So since most of the Southeast Asian kids are anemic, more than 50% of them are anemic, so if you give them tea, it could worsen the situation. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, tea can increase diuresis, which means the output of urine, the excretion of water from the body increases. So they become dehydrated. That's the second reason. Third reason is, since caffeine is a stimulant, it can increase the anxiety, it can increase restlessness, it can cause poor sleep, and also for some children, which is the 4th reason, it can cause digestive issues, heartburn. So therefore, parents, please think twice before you give tea to children.
When actor and comedian Robin Williams died in 2014, the world was shocked and saddened. His laughter and humour would be missed by many who were heartbroken by the loss. However, because of a series of videos uploaded to YouTube by Charlie Chittenden Paranormal and Huff Paranormal, some believe the beloved comedian may not be gone for good. Charlie Chittenden recorded his videos using a ghost box, attempting specifically to make contact with Robin Williams in the afterlife. Ghost boxes operate by scanning radio frequencies in an attempt to capture EVPs. At first, the ghost box seems to make contact with other spirits, one of which says, "Robin's gone, that's over." Charlie continues his questioning, with some ghostly voices seeming to provide answers to his questions. However, it isn't clear if it's Williams's voice.
Your reasons for doing this may have been that you were suffering from Lewy body dementia. Could you confirm this was part of the reason?
In Charlie's second attempt to communicate with Williams using the ghost box, Charlie again asks Williams' spirit to come forward and speak. The scary EVPs continue in this session, with ghostly voices popping up occasionally, providing unclear and cryptic responses to Charlie's questions.
Robin starred in films such as What Dreams May Come.
In the Huff Paranormal video, the host also attempts to use a ghost box to communicate with the late actor. The first attempt in making contact occurred on the day that Williams died. A voice speaks up saying, "We're waiting," in a tone that the investigator believes matches Williams' voice in life.
Are you there, Robin?
The voice makes other statements that sound like Williams and could suggest that he's in the afterlife, such as the phrase, "I must have got it wrong." The investigator makes further attempts to contact Williams. In his third attempt, the most compelling EVP comes through. The voice states, "I'm dead," in a tone that sounds exactly like Robin Williams. This session ends with the hopeful phrase, "There is light and I'm here with Dad." This suggests that the beloved actor may have found peace wherever he is.
When you read an article that says this in the headline, what are your first thoughts? Of course, Beijing has plans, and one of those plans is to build an airstrip on an island, but the island is disputed. It's clear, isn't it, that Beijing is bad here. Beijing is doing something it shouldn't be doing. Well, it's clear until you look at the real story. I don't know if the story's problem lies with the writer, Annika Burgess, or the Australian ABC's editorial team which published this article. But let me show you how we're being manipulated by media headlines that don't match the reality. In the first paragraph, we get an inkling that this story might not be all it's cracked up to be. The article says, China may be building a new airstrip, but it's too early to tell. So in fact, China may not be building a new airstrip at all. And that's in the first paragraph. Okay, let's move on. The next paragraph, it states that China might be constructing an airstrip on Triton Island, which is also claimed by Vietnam and Taiwan. So now we've had a third reference to this new airstrip, and we've had the introduction of Taiwan as a claimant of the island. According to the United Nations, Taiwan is not a country. I don't say this, the UN says this. So the claim on the island is disputed between China and Vietnam only. We could argue all day and night about the Taiwan question, but until Taiwan is recognized in the United Nations as a country, it can't claim islands anywhere. A 2007 book called A Modern History of Chinese Borders describes how in 1946 the island was legitimately claimed in the international community by the Republic of China. In 1949, the Republic of China was defeated in a civil war, and since 1971, the People's Republic of China has been recognized as one China. So there's another ABC deception here. There can't be a dispute between China and Taiwan over ownership. That's clearly not possible, as there is only one country called China, and Taiwan is a part of that country. Even if it's not, it doesn't have a claim. Map Carter is not an official organ, but it lists Triton Island as part of China. CSIS is not an official organ, it's a think tank, but it lists Triton Island as an occupied outpost of China and has records of Chinese constructions there going back a long time. Even Wikipedia, which I hate to cite, states the administration of the island is the People's Republic of China. Furthermore, as we find when we read all the way down to the last line of this article, the Paracel Islands, which are where Triton Island is located, are actually not disputed. Vietnam may have an historical claim on them, but they were taken after the defeat of the Vietnamese Navy in 1974 by the Chinese Navy. China took over the entire chain and claims them as their own. Now, it is possible that some Western minds might view this differently, but before they do, they should look at their own history and decide if China should give back islands that A, they had a legitimate historic claim on, and B, they legitimately won those islands during a military conflict. What would the Western countries need to give back to avoid being accused of double standards? In the fifth paragraph, the writer tells us that the airstrip would be 600 meters in length. But in the next paragraph, they refer back to CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which has a department called the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative. And one of their analysts said, and I don't make this up, this is true, one of their analysts said, early analysis does not point to a runway. So we've had 6 paragraphs and 4 suggestions that China is building an airstrip. But then an expert says they aren't. The analysts went on to say it's too small, it's too narrow, there is no evidence of an apron or a taxiway or any other indicator that this is a runway. So ABC, it's not a runway. Why does your headline indicate to your readers that it's a runway or an airstrip? But ABC, it gets worse. There's another consideration when we look at this story. Hainan Island and the city of Sanya are actually quite close to this. Sanya has a massive airport. I've been there. It can easily be shared with, and in fact is nominally shared with, but not used by, the People's Liberation Army Navy. So what would be the purpose of building an airstrip so close to one that's already there? Another point is that China has made it clear it is not militarizing this region. Xi Jinping said this in a meeting with Barack Obama, and former Premier Li Keqiang has said this too. Western analysts and Western media don't believe the leaders of China, and they keep suggesting, inferring, or indicating that China could militarize. In fact, as we've clearly seen here, the ABC aren't saying China is, they are inferring China is doing something it's not. And they're assuming their readers won't be smart enough to see through it. ABC describes itself as Australia's most trusted news source. But here we have a great example of why they can't be trusted to report fairly or competently on China. Remembering the headline, here's what it said. New construction raised questions over Beijing plans to build an airstrip on disputed South China Sea island. And here's a quick summary. The island isn't disputed. Beijing has said it isn't militarizing the island, and an analyst says this doesn't look like an airstrip. But for some reason, ABC and many other news outlets around the world would like us to think that it is. We should ask ourselves why that is so. And while we ask ourselves why is it so, we should consider this. The same story with the same photographs was run by US News, the Navy Times, Associated Press, and many others. And here's what makes me so mad about it. The ABC has missed an opportunity here because the scoop apparently belonged to AP. It was amplified by so many different media outlets around the world. But only the ABC in all the media that I've read actually confirmed this is not an airstrip. Only the ABC posted information from an analyst who said this is not an airstrip and hasn't got the makings of being one. So here's the message to take away from this. Australia's most trusted news source went the extra step of verifying that this is not a correct headline, but then used the same scaremongering tactics to suck us, gullible readers, into believing it was. And when the ABC do that, they cease to become our trusted media source. They just become one of the propaganda pack. Why would they do that?
I feel like after watching these videos every day here, you just can't agree or know what's even true these days. Do you believe what you just see, or you question everything like according to how these videos are making us? This is just crazy, man. And that previous video about that guy called Robin Williams that died, that device that they was using to communicate with him in the afterlife. Man, where can I get that one? I'd like to speak with some people from the past that died, man, because that's really crazy. Didn't know there were such gadgets. For English people, you have great gadgets. That's crazy, man. You can comment up in the link section where we can get them in the comment section. Let's keep watching.
Does anybody else have like specific sounds that bother them? For me, it's styrofoam. It's styrofoam. Like styrofoam rubbing against each other. Alright, I'm gonna try to open this. Oh! I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna open this. Okay.
All right, now to new warnings this morning about an American staple, rice. Consumer Reports is releasing a new report detailing what it calls worrisome levels of arsenic in many common types of rice products.
World staple, the starch that feeds babies to seniors, and now a troubling warning to limit how much rice we eat from a prominent source.
Since the beginning of time, we've been struggling with large levels of arsenic being in our rice products. And since the beginning, the FDA pretended to care. Studies shows the very same foods we all love are actually the same foods putting us in early graves.
Some products had 5 times more than the arsenic found in oatmeal, 1.5 times more than the EPA's legal standard for drinking water. Inorganic arsenic is considered a level 1 carcinogen, linked to lung and bladder cancer.
Don't eat it if possible, or eat very little of it. And brown rice actually has more arsenic in it. Always boil your rice, pour out the arsenic water, and then boil the rice a little longer with fresh water.
Now watch, these are snipers. Somebody is standing there and they're going to aim at the balloons close to that person you are seeing. Look at the way they are sniping away the balloons. No mistake. That is somebody's life involved in that thing. These are perfect snipers. They are good. One thing about sniping is actually a gift. I am not as good as this, that's the truth. Even me, I can snipe, but not as good as this.
The Biden administration has been strongly critical of China's actions on human rights, but engaging on climate change. Do you see that as a strategy that can actually work?
I'm not sure why BBC started with listing only China's human rights abuses. What about America's human rights abuses? The Iraq War, together with the UK, completely illegal and under false pretenses. The war in Syria, the war in Libya, the continued sanctions against civilian populations in Venezuela and Iran, walking away from the Paris Climate Agreement for the last 4 years, unilateral trade actions that have been deemed illegal by WTO. So one can make anything one wants, but we have really serious human rights violations by the United States abroad, not to mention in insurrection on January 6th in our own country, not to mention the continued massive racism, white supremacism, and abuse of incarceration of hundreds of thousands of people in the U.S., Black, African American, people of color. So I think that the whole premise of this story is a little bit odd.
No, but sorry, I'm looking. If I may, we have to look.
I found the framing of it not what I expected. I thought we were going to talk about climate change, which we should. But I think that the idea that there is one party that is so guilty, how can we talk to them, is just a strange way to address this issue.
Well, hang on. Sorry, Jeffrey. If I could come, Jeffrey. I'm hoping we can have a conversation. I'm hoping we can have a conversation. And if I could just say, I'm using, and what I'm saying back to you here is, we're also using the framing of the Biden administration. We're also talking from the perspective of how Joe Biden himself and those around him have talked about the human rights abuses in China. So you know, sorry, just to say,
always, excuse me for one moment, the U.S. always attacks other countries. It holds itself sacrosanct